All right, all right. What's up, people? It is Friday, July 7th. For those of you in America, happy birthday, America. Happy Independence Day. For those of you in the rest of the world, hopefully you had a nice break from Americans for a little while. Otherwise, happy 4th of July and welcome to Shally's Alley. We are live. Today we're broadcasting from Germany. No, I'm kidding. But we do have a special guest who is in Germany and from Germany, my friend Florian Funk. First of all, I just love people that have the same initial for both names. You know, Shally, Stecker, Florian Funk. So right there, you won
Woohoo.
me over. No problem. So Florian is lives in Darmstadt.
Yeah, kind of close to Frankfurt, but yeah, but Darmstadt, yeah.
Darmstadt. Okay. And he is a sourcing recruiter that sources. Florian and I actually met when he was just a child, and had it was an exchange program.
Yeah, I was remembering about either like an internship part or the exchange student. I don't know some, but down the road,
I
down the
think it
road.
was.
Yeah.
I think you were an exchange student, and
Oh,
your
you're right.
exchange parents
Yeah.
were Mel and her husband. My time then, I was at Coca-Cola Enterprises, and Mel was my boss there. Um, and you were you were staying as an exchange student there, got interested in what we did, and then became an intern and got an internship with Coca-Cola as a recruiter, right? Or in
Yeah.
TA, something like
Yeah.
that.
Really. Yeah. I mean, and now I've
Yeah, and I
probably
and I, I taught him I taught Florian some recruiting and some sourcing, and he was like, "Oh, this is pretty cool." Then he went back to Germany and started a career doing it, and has been doing it ever since, and is now an independent consultant that works with companies that need to source for difficult positions in Germany, but really not just Germany, German-speaking countries, and all of EU as well. So I brought Florian today because he's got an interesting perspective on recruiting from a more international or global point of view, where sometimes things don't quite they're not quite the same as what we understand to be common practices. And for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, I'll give you a good example. And Florian, of course, can illustrate this a little bit better. But in Germany, you must give a much longer time notice. So positions sometimes may be filled because of somebody accepting an offer, but they won't start for many months. So, Florian, tell me a little bit about that. What is there like a limit, a maximum, a minimum for notice? How or what's the typical standard in
Well,
Germany?
it kind of well. There's like, I mean, obviously we're talking about Germany, and therefore we have like a lot of rules for pretty much every detail. It is Germany as it is, and what we have for example like limits with about the minimum amount of notice period. For example, I think the probation period is at least like 2 weeks, and after staying with
Okay.
the company for 6 months, the minimum notice period has to be 4 weeks. And
So if you've been with a company for more than 6 months, you have a minimum 4 week notice, which here in the
exactly,
U.S. is there's no minimum, zero, right? So
exactly.
yeah,
But it also, it increases by the time you stay with the company. So it can really, if you stay there for longer of time, it increases anyways. But also the law gives the companies the freedom to to create longer notice periods. For example, it's just not, especially in the tech industry where I focus quite a lot on. Like a lot of companies, especially with senior developers, senior consultants, senior I don't know,
mm,
architects, etc., that they're kind of in an area where they have like notice periods around 3 to 4 to 6 months, maybe. And
months.
therefore,
Right.
Yeah, it's man. I mean,
So you might hire somebody, make an offer, and they accept, and 6 months later they start. Yeah.
yeah, and
And is
exactly.
that
This
common
bring
across Europe, or is that specifically?
it's. I believe. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't speak for really smaller parts, but Europe, but talking about mainly, it's a pretty German thing, I would say.
Is
Other
it?
countries are more like, okay, 4 weeks or 2 weeks, and be done with that or just leave anyways. But on the other hand, which makes it somehow kind of ridiculous. That's still like a common practice. And all, okay, you have this notice period, but when you quit, there's often like arrangement. Okay, you can leave like after 2 months, 2 weeks maybe, or stuff like that. Just it's somehow there's it's like a lot of common in other contracts, but usually there are maybe some rules or some possibilities to get like let's say certain individual rulings or arrangement with your former employee.
Exemptions and stuff like that. Okay. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but
so
I
it's a
mean,
lot more
but
complicated
yeah,
to
and
fill
this
positions.
makes it kind of well, kind of a difficulty in regards of planning on when you want to start to hire and when you want to have the position filled,
Oh,
because
right.
it
You need
is
to
like
start hiring 6 months earlier,
or even more, because
even more.
there's like
Wow. You need
the
to plan
process, and
for it. Okay.
yeah, and this
So,
sometimes,
guys,
I
for
mean,
those of you that plan on doing any recruiting outside of the US, potentially in Europe, and particularly in Germany, you might want to start getting that headcount plan, or even posting the rec and start working on the rec much further ahead because it's going to take longer. You can't just hire somebody in 2 weeks. Now,
and
oh yeah, and sorry, go ahead.
which in combination with this German speciality, there's also, let's say, the kind of the habitus of the German um, candidates, that they are far more, especially in comparison to the US, they are far more, let's say, looking for more information in order to to decide if I want to apply there or not. It's kind of, sometimes they're really really super picky, that they have like the feeling, oh, I have to at least match like 90-95% of the job description
So is
before I
that
apply it
before they
anyways.
talk to you?
Yeah,
Before they talk. Okay, so this is like they're looking at the job description before they even consider applying, and they're pickier, or not pickier, but they're more rigid about having all the requirements for the job. So it's
yeah,
even more important that you don't put a bunch of nice to haves, because that would eliminate people that you probably wouldn't want to eliminate since they're not hard requirements. That's
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, it is also, it's sometimes get like the feeling that for like the typical, let's say, US candidates, they're like, okay, at least if I if I can just checkbox 10%, I will apply anyways.
I don't know about
And
ten
in
percent, but
Germany
yeah,
it's
you're
like,
definitely more liberal.
it's more
Yeah.
like 90-95, and I'm still give it like 10 more minutes to this to think, and otherwise rather not before I do it. And this is
Wow. Wow.
and this also, we got actually got experience a lot of kind of, especially over the last year, 2 years maybe, that say that there's like a lot of, let's say, nurturing needed before even the candidate is even open to have like a first,
Okay,
we have
so
like a
it's
first chat anyways.
relationship building and
Oh yeah, maybe
okay.
it's not the right time, but hey, let's stay in contact and blah blah blah. But it's not blah blah blah. We just had like enough situation where a candidate came back after like the first reach out, like 12 to 6, or between like 6 and 12 months ago. Say, hey, Florian, now it's time to have like a job open.
Wow.
It was like
Okay.
far more long-term hiring, a lot of
Wow.
relationship based, a lot of obviously the stuff you would usually do after you got the first contact happens here before the before you even got the CV.
So it just takes longer and there's more steps. So we've had some conversations over the years about a couple of things. One of them is the role of um, recruiters and sourcers, and the other one is privacy, and particularly GDPR and things like that. But let's start with the role of the recruiter and sourcer. You learned that here first, then went back there and created your own business and everything. But you've seen the evolution of what recruiting was 15
Mm.
years ago and what recruiting is today. How is the role of the recruiter different in Germany and the EU than what we know here in the United States?
Well, I think I mean, if you
Functionally.
remember, if you remember, our conversation was like at the beginning kind of confused that in the US it's like a really hard cut between the recruiter and the sourcer. And
Specialization. Yeah,
yeah, a lot
separation.
of it's kind of in the, well, overall, I think the opinion, if you're talking in Germany, especially about a recruiter, you say somebody who does recruiting but also is involved in active sourcing,
Hmm.
talent. For us, it's like more talent attraction, I would say. It's
Yeah.
more like a more generalistic point of view. And yeah, and it's I think it's like would be
Now,
the main
do you think so? Here in the U.S., that the role of a recruiting sourcer definitely exists. Not every company has a specialized sourcer that's dedicated or a
Mhm.
sourcing team that's dedicated. It takes a certain type of company. They have to have either lots of really challenging, one of a kind requirements, or they have to be large enough. So it does exist here. In that there are recruiters that just do recruiting and no sourcing, and there are recruiters that do sourcing, and they're people that essentially do both jobs. Do you think that in Germany and in the EU, the role of the sourcer being part of recruiters or recruiter sourcer is that way because of the size of the market? In other words, the population. So there's really not necessarily such a large population that you would need to specialize. Is that the reason for it, or is there another reason?
I believe it's as I said a couple of minutes before. It's on the ones that the sourcing process in Germany is far more it's far more longer till the till the
I
candidate
see.
turns
So a
into like an
sorcerer would
applicant.
only be doing. I got it. So because it's so long a process, you really have to have someone that can do the whole thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you would have people that sort of drop halfway of 6 months. Okay, that makes sense. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
this will
I
be
get
like
that.
one part. I think the other part might be that, as I said before, that the candidate, isn't moving so quickly.
Hmm.
As in, okay, so you sent me, the reach out, for example, via LinkedIn on, Tuesday night, and I want to, I applied like 12 hours ago. I said, and like, let's start with the first thing. In the Germany, it's more like, okay, let's look into the job description, have like 10 messages between back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, talking about the worst case. And this brings us to a just, I would say, like a far and then for then they came to the point when they are really want to understand, is this the right
Hmm.
company, etc., etc. So the speed,
So
you
recruiting is a
n-
lot more than,
it's
yeah.
slow,
Sourcing is only a
and
smaller
it's just
portion because of the long tail. Okay, that makes sense.
and
Yeah,
it's slower, to be honest. I mean,
it's
if I
slower.
see
Yeah, I
if I
gotcha.
see it with my clients in the US and or working for departments who are in the US, and therefore connecting with candidates from the USA, they have like another expectation to speed in the
A
for
German
the first
company
approach.
operating in the United States is what you're saying, or a German
Yeah,
company
for
abroad
example, or just
has a
if
different
you're,
purview. Okay.
but also if we're talking with German, or I think it gets like even more obvious for me, if I work with clients in the US and they only know the US market. It's like, okay, why is it
Mhm.
so slow here? Come on.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I think that's
Which,
like
yeah, and that's the other thing. It brings me to the GDPR question. But the reason I was asking about the size of the population is because, according to LinkedIn, which of course is the source of truth for everything, um, according to LinkedIn, there's 14 million people on LinkedIn in Germany. So 14 million uh, people who reside in Germany on LinkedIn, compared to 300 million in the United States.
yeah,
So
I think that's like another really interesting aspect. I think there are like plenty of workforce in the US who or in Germany, sorry, who didn't even land as LinkedIn because
got
I
it.
don't want to interact with all the, you know. And this
Right.
brings us to JDPR.
Yeah.
Perfect,
Perfect
perfect,
subway.
perfect.
Yeah. Segue. Yeah. So one of the biggest challenges that I've faced in my career, and I'll back up a little bit to explain. When I first started sourcing for these larger projects for companies, I tracked my activity from a self edification perspective. In other words, I wanted to know what worked, what didn't work, very
Mhm.
scientific, very analytic. So I tracked all of my searches, and I had this table that I used to figure out which ones worked better, etc. And as a result, I just happened to, I don't claim to be any kind of privacy um, or tracking expert, but I accidentally stumbled upon being compliant in the US with applicant flow logs and privacy regulations, because I was tracking these things for myself to learn. As things evolved and we had, privacy evolving and everything, it turned out that a majority of what I was doing happened to also be GDPR compliant, except for when I got to this point where it just started to become very challenging, which is the whole concept of contacting people. So, for example,
Mhm.
emailing someone at work on their work address or calling someone at work are not really considered. I don't want to say appropriate, but they're not common practice, and they're probably even frowned upon. And I believe for a time it was illegal in Germany to call a person at work to recruit them. And I think that's a long time ago. But so these are things that, I'm used to finding people and reaching out to them, and all of a sudden I'm tracking everything and I'm compliant, and they can ask to be removed and all that, no problem. But now all of a sudden I'm getting messages from people saying you cannot do this, you can't email me at work. And so that's when I became concerned, because now it's a matter of, well, if I found somebody and I want to reach out to them, I'm not allowed to. So how do you tell me more about that? Is can we dig into that?
Yeah, Germany and GDPR. Yes, great and never-ending topic. Yeah, I think I mean, we are. I think one of the biggest difference in regards of sourcing between between overseas and Germany is that you have like a lot of, let's say, candidates, etc., who are really eager in order to get like, okay, how do you get my contact details? Please just contact me in a certain way, etc., etc.
Mm,
And especially with I wouldn't say it is completely illegal to contact them on your on their work email, etc., etc. um, but it's kind of really difficult because a lot of it seems, or it has like this bad smell to it, that kind of shady. It's okay. How do you know? It's
mm,
like a ninja kind of move, and especially there are certain, let's say, certain rules in regards. It's okay for engaging, but then the rule, the legislation can say, okay, you have to really move out of the company communication into a, let's say, private channel. This kind of stuff, and
hmm
as sending job description to company email addresses.
Is not allowed.
It is allowed somehow, but then forget about that particular candidate. See, well, the chance that you will get an answer anyways is so slow, and then it would be like a positive answer. No, don't do that. It's like more like, okay, hey, somebody's trying to rob me, but is still leaving like a job description for me anyways. You won't do it. It's just like a really shady thing, or at least it seems shady for the German candidate, and therefore this whole, you know. And this brings us. I mean, you're a third. I mean, if you're looking into LinkedIn, and you see like a lot of, let's say, I would say, for example, like candidates who leave their email address out in the open, to look at their profile with certain tools.
Hmm
If you probably look at like 20 candidates in the US, so with the same role, you will get like 19 email address. In Germany, maybe one. And this like more
So there's fewer
other.
available, but even the ones that are there, you can't contact basically.
I mean, you could do that, but I wouldn't do that in regards of, if you really want to have like a positive feedback from the candidate. It's just like, oh, how do I didn't invite you to reach out to me via email, but please use like a more neutral contact channel, as for example LinkedIn, before I give you like the opt-in. Hey, Shally, please send me an email via this thing.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
So
yeah,
basically, what I'm hearing you is, let's not be too afraid. It's just it's a different culture, but there's a way to do it. It can be done. It's not like you're not going to get sent to some kind of jail or anything like that.
no, but
I see.
as this GDPR thing brings us to the point why the numbers that you just talked about with the people on LinkedIn. A lot of people aren't there because I don't want to be there. I don't want to share my data there,
Hmm
etc., etc. And therefore a lot of people say, I'm not so active on either on the channels, or say they really kind of put the gates up in order, you can't contact them anyways. So it's more like,
Well,
okay, I'm there.
how many working age uh, people in the workforce are in Germany?
Let's move on with another question, Shally. I have no idea, but
Oh,
it's
okay.
still
All right.
it's more like I would say it's more
I,
like
I think it's somewhere between maybe 50 or 60 million, and LinkedIn only has 14 million. So
yeah, but I
that
mean
explains your point.
yeah, and it's more like I think German recruitment is like a really multi-channel focused recruitment. Really, let's
Besides
say.
LinkedIn, what else?
Yeah, we do actually like a lot of let's say social media recruiting, I would say, with like targeted ads, etc., to
Oh,
really
okay.
get those people who aren't really looking, more like, okay, if something interesting, I will click on it. And yeah,
So
and especially
advertising, but a different kind of advertising.
it's like, it's more like targeted ad kind of thing. A lot of we do actually like a lot of with with good let's say SEO and SEO with Google ads, etc. More like the kind of generic way, but also that people are just looking for the right stuff, to just kind of reach a person when they are looking for something, more like of a lot of this, like, topic or content creating. And the stuff, it takes time.
Yeah, so here we're very dependent on LinkedIn and job boards in general. Before LinkedIn and even during LinkedIn, there's still many other job boards.
Yeah.
And what you're saying in the EU and in particularly in German, uh, uh, job seekers are more responding to advertising, and there's more of a diversified
Certain kind of
strategy.
advertising, for example, what doesn't
Okay.
work anymore, especially in tech industry, is like stuff with Stepstone and Monster. Forget about that. It's good for employer branding, but not to reach out, but not to reach. It's more like, social ads you see on, Instagram with reels, etc. More this kind of stuff, and so like a lot of, a lot of like small tools, small kind of action you have to take, and also get like a really, yeah. And this, as it brings that kind of this is why we have less people who are just only focused on sourcing, because I think like the job description for a recruiter is kind of different over here, due to the
Yeah.
speed, different kind of tools, different kind of stuff you have to do, like a lot of work with marketing in regards of what would be like the best way to let's create a new content, create some, go to workshops, a lot of like working with the, let's say, outside of the recruitment department, a lot of like engaging with the head of department, or for developer search, work with the developers,
Sounds
what
like it's
kind
a
of.
lot more collaborative and strategic
Yes,
than
yes, yes.
yeah.
And
Okay.
to be honest, a lot of which works really great with the right companies, a lot of um with suggestions from from people, hey, talk to him.
Referrals and networking. Okay.
A lot of referrals. So that was what I'm looking for, a lot of
Another
referrals.
another component of privacy that is beyond the sourcing or after the sourcing is also the kinds of things that you can talk to candidates about. Here in the United States, for diversity reasons and lots of different regulatory bodies about medical and financial privacy, there are some things that we can't ask. But in Europe, there are different things that you can't ask. Like, what's something that you are allowed to ask in Germany that would be surprising to us here? And what's something that you are not allowed to ask in Germany that would be surprising to us here?
Well, I don't know. I'm not so sure what changed in the US or not. But one stuff, for example, would never ask, if you're pregnant or not, or if you have to plan to, especially, with the
That's
with
definitely
female,
the same here. Yeah, pregnancy
wouldn't do
status,
that
marital status.
anyways.
What
But
about salary? Can you ask about their salary?
well, yeah, absolutely,
Yeah, see, here in
absolutely.
the United States, there are many states that have passed laws that say that you cannot ask someone their current salary.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Hmm.
and that's more and more states are picking that up. What about race and ethnicity? Can you ask that?
I mean, I wouldn't do that because I don't freaking care. But there
Yeah,
isn't
but
like
is
anything
it a
because I
law?
can.
Like here, it's a
So there
law.
isn't a law, but
Interesting.
what for once, I think
Or
if you
age,
would,
maybe?
the problem why it's kind of difficult to ask
Mhm.
those questions is I'm allowed, but
But you
for
don't.
example,
You
if I
shouldn't,
have
and you don't, right?
if I have like a bad candidate and we reject him, and I ask him, oh, okay, you are, I don't know, what are your race and what's your age? You can somehow be sure if he's like kind of lawyering up.
Yeah,
I get like, you just discriminate because he was like race and age. I was like, yeah, but, and that's why I
right.
don't ask anymore. Not
So
not
that
because
brings
of
me.
that,
That's
but
an interesting
also,
point.
I would say, I don't. care. I mean, I want
Yeah.
to have like the right person to it. So I wouldn't, even if I wouldn't be allowed, it doesn't from my recruitment perspective. I don't care.
This is a topic of conversation on the show now, at least 4 or 5 times, where we've had conversations around regulations and what needs to be done by law and what should be done. And that's, to me, always been kind of a sticking point. I think that when we create these kinds of policies internally, we should look to have a policy that is international and all encompassing. So things like, okay, if you shouldn't ask about age, it doesn't matter whether it's legal or not. That's the policy. We don't ask, right?
Yeah,
So creating standards that are, I think, more that, stick to what's the requirements of the job, and talk about the talents, skills, and their abilities and potential, rather than having all these laws that say you have to or don't have to ask this or not that, because laws are going to be different in every country, and in some
true.
countries they may not have a law. It still doesn't make it okay to do so, right? So
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
why I was, yeah.
Yeah, I
what
will.
what
From
about
yeah.
what about something that you do ask in Germany, like, for example, education, like a university? Is that something that here we ask a lot about? Do you have a degree? And
Yeah,
so that's okay too.
that's completely okay. I mean, it's not
Okay.
like to. Yeah, it's. I mean, I'm. I think what's the main difference is with, if I look in Germany outside of investment banking, it's not really like a big important thing on what university. I mean, I know it's completely different. In the US, and I know it's different in the UK, but in Germany
Mhm.
we don't have so many industries who are working with target universities, etc., etc.
College
Especially
degree. Okay.
in the IT and development departments, more like we don't care. Doesn't really matter. We see it more or less. I would say, like, for example, development on a high level. It's more like a craftsmanship. So it doesn't really matter on how you got it, on how you learned it. So it's does. I can't even say, especially with my where tech was when I the best hirings, the talent people. I didn't even look at their university degrees or get. I've it's
Yeah.
I know, from working with you, for example, with clients in the UK or in the US, sometimes in France as well, or like a lot of, okay, what kind of degrees there, what kind of education background is there? It's of far more emphasis on that, and in Germany was like, maybe due to also our kind of, let's say, challenge that we have, like, for like quite some time. We had a lot of, like, a big gap between available workforce and open jobs, especially
Mm.
in tech, with
Okay.
in the higher education sector. So you couldn't even bother, because, and on the other hand, what I kind of liked is that they changed from, he has to know everything. It's more like hire the right attitude and train the people. So it wouldn't really matter, on the too much focus on the education background. More like, getting the right
Yeah.
people into the company.
Let's let's talk a little bit. Let's switch over to strategy worldwide, right? So
Yeah.
one of the things that you do and have been working with is advising companies on overall strategy, global strategy. Um, to open the horizons for people that might not be familiar with hiring outside of the United States, and now I'm just saying everywhere, not just specifically Germany or
Hmm.
EU. What would you say is a key or a very important strategy that they would need to pay attention to, that they're probably overlooking when they're looking to start recruiting outside of the US? So they've been recruiting in the US and now they got a job where they have to recruit globally. What strategy do you think is frequently overlooked that needs to be looked at?
I think there's like one, I think, it sounds easy, but I think it often got a kind of forgotten that if you do remote hiring, don't forget about the regional part. So it's all about,
Okay.
it's completely okay to say, okay, no, we post it on LinkedIn, etc., and all the overall global sources, but don't forget about the regional aspect. For example, different kind of countries have different kind of expectation on
Hmm.
what to add in a job ad. What's like, every kind of country has, like, their, that the candidates are looking for a different kind of information.
Hmm.
And I think that's like often forget is, they just do remote hiring. And
And we go everywhere, but
yeah,
not
and different
realizing
kind
that
of cultures.
there's,
I mean, obviously,
yeah.
some tech candidate from India is looking for a complete, has like another, let's say, thing what he's looking for than, for example, like the candidate from, I don't know, from Poland or from Denmark, etc., and but also wants to see other things. Maybe more countries who are more for Finland, for example, are more looking for like something stable and something
Hmm.
let's say what's the EVP behind it. And on the other hand, we have countries that okay, what would be like my next career step where I can really move up to the next level, this kind of stuff.
Interesting.
And therefore hiring global, but never forget about the local aspects, not also on the candidate side, but also to check for laws. For example, in Austria,
Like for what?
like for local law
Oh,
requirements.
laws.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Check for
for
local laws. That's right.
Austria,
Regulatory.
Austria, for example, has like a law which makes it mandatory that you put the salary range into the job ad.
So interesting.
In
So
not any.
Germany. We think about the European Union and GDPR and all these things as a region, but you're telling me that within EU, Austria and Germany have different employment
Yeah,
laws
absolutely.
that are not that are not in, like in Germany you don't have to post the salary. Okay,
No.
interesting.
No, it's completely, and this and this makes it, I think, so. Yeah, and that's like what one of the biggest strategy parts. Like, yeah, but please, if you are saying, okay, we're a big, Canadian company or US company or whatsoever, moving into a new country or into a new area, still work with the local offices and get their input, and obviously, they have to work with the people in the end of the day, and you want, you want to
Mhm.
fit the market.
Tell me, what is in your opinion, what is the most interesting aspect about recruiting and sourcing? So together, all of it, the whole thing. What is what when you were an intern and you thought, I want to do this for a profession, what captured your attention and interest about it? That hopefully that is still capturing it.
It's well, I think it kind of well in the beginning it was like something else. Was oh great career, and finally I can do something really interesting stuff. But I think what I really like is the finding the right person in the right at the right time in the right spot and bring it together with the like the matching thing. And looking under like a lot of different kind of sources, different kind of thing, and
Mhm.
you're just okay, Shally,
So
here,
you like that
that's the person you're
puzzle
looking for,
of
here it is.
matchmaking.
And also
Okay.
kind of in combination also with having like the strategic part behind it, what how are the KPIs, how that what I kind of like. And then on the other hand, it's recruitment or sourcing is it's just so easy and kind of great to to use data in order to measure it and see your success.
Good.
Yeah, and this were like two parts. I think probably could go on over the next 30 minutes on why I like recruitment. It's just like
Yeah, but I looking
after
for that
meeting,
one
after me,
captivating.
Shally. To be honest, after meeting you and getting into it, it just turned into a passion. So it's like
Yeah, yeah, and that's the passion, is the matchmaking. Got it. Yep.
yeah, a lot of, and I mean, I could go on for a couple of hours probably on why I love recruitment.
What about the other question I want to ask you is, what has been the most unexpected benefit of being in this industry?
The unexpected benefit.
Yeah,
Well,
not obviously compensation and but I mean,
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
what has been the most, you're like, wow, I never realized I was going to be able to get this from this profession, this job.
Actually, knowledge about industries, companies, economy, this kind of stuff. Like a lot of I learned, so with all those interviews or research, I stumbled over
Mhm.
industries or companies
Yep.
or technology I never would even thought that this exists. Especially working with working with in the tech recruitment area. I obviously I can't set up any AWS architecture, but still learned, let's say, kind of the basics, the wordings, etc. A lot of like saw company growing, saw industries falling apart, and yeah, this kind of stuff. Like like those second those informations, like a lot of information, a lot of input. And as well, I never thought of it would be like so big in regards of your knowledge about cultural differences, different
Yeah.
this kind of knowledge.
Right. That is, I would agree 100%. For me, it's been, thank you for asking, by the way. No, I'm just kidding. For me,
Well, you were
it's
too
been
fast.
really surprising over, and I've been doing this for more than 25 years.
Hmm.
I still go to business meetings where I am learning about business. I'm learning about not just the business of HR, business of job, but I mean like business, like how businesses work, how companies make money, um, and and about how companies operate. Right? What are the different roles? Like, for example, you might not remember this, but when we were at Coca-Cola, I worked with this department that was essentially uh, part of risk. Now, I understood from going to business school, I understood what risk was supposed to be, but what I did not know is that there's a role, there are departments at companies that are protecting the organization from a different kind of risk, that is the risk of getting cheated, the risk of people committing fraud. And it's almost like being a detective. It's not policing, but it's like it's not security, it's
Hmm.
not it's not locking the money in the safe. It's this other, it's the risk of people like committing fraud and stuff like that. And I was like, wow, this is a job. This was a long time ago. And so I've found throughout the years these departments, these groups, these people that do jobs that are just fascinating and very captivating. So I think for me that's been the biggest benefit, unexpected and unadvertised benefit of being in this industry, is access to the C-suite, access to conversations with CEOs and CFOs and how they think and how they make decisions. That man, if I could take what I know now and go back 25 years, I would
True.
start my own business and do things completely different. Maybe I still have time, but it's a really good education in running a
Yes.
company, running a business that you wouldn't believe. I recommend it. I would say if there was one job that business school graduates should look to do as an internship in order to get business experience, it would be recruiting, because it gives them the most access to all of the jobs, right? You
Yeah.
can start in recruiting and then look at all the different things that you might be interested in, with a business degree. So I would highly recommend it as an internship for lots of people that are interested in following corporate careers, management careers.
Yeah, but and I think to be honest, when I started with recruitment, I couldn't oversee that the role as such changed so far. When I'm looking, at the what was like the requirements to be a recruiter from for currently like 13 years ago till now. The role completely turned into really like tech-driven role. I couldn't expect that to do that. I mean, it's more like using AI, using maybe some robotic process automatization, etc. So I think, and this will, from my personal perspective, but also because just like the tech industry, it's like somehow of a unexpected benefit. That I would by far that I would move far more into like a more
Technology.
technology role,
Yeah,
which I mean HR or especially recruitment like 15 years ago wasn't
that's
really tech
true.
driven, to be honest.
That's true. So you've learned a lot about tech just doing the
Yeah.
job. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously, it's like a completely common topic right now with with AI or ChatGPT. But it brings me to a point where okay, I have to think more on a technical way in regards of algorithms, etc., etc. But it just got far more technical besides just clicking the right checkboxes on LinkedIn.
Okay. So, um, what what else do you think is missing in global recruiting strategy? I asked you, if someone was going to start getting into global, what
Yeah.
strategy would you advise that is most often overlooked? Let's take that another step further and look at just generally in people who are already doing international recruiting, and not just the rookies, but when you go out there and you advise clients and you work with companies, what's the most common thing that you find is just missing, like they just don't do it that they should be doing?
The connecting between the countries. It's like
Tell me more about
the
that.
Well, I just experienced like a couple of times, either with clients or talking with just other people from the industry, regional or like regional heads. So, just overall, I can't pin, obviously I don't want to pin it down to one company, but
Yeah,
something.
yeah, no, that's what
Oh,
I said generally.
it's more like yeah, you heard like a lot of stuff. Oh, the HR, our headquarters is doing something. Nobody asked us, and they spend like 20,000, plenty of money for you know for certain recruitment agencies, either who are out of UK, but we are looking for something in Germany. They are far more specialized, because there is like a lot of, but also, oh, we had, why is headquarters looking for us? We have like the right candidate, but nobody asked us. And I think therefore like a lot of efficiency missing in regards of that the headquarter who is expanding internationally in the country isn't really connecting, also the other way around as well, with the people in the region. And this brings like a lot of, for once, it's like a completely efficiency killer, but also it brings like a really, let's say, not a good environment in order to give like the right candidate in time, but also to accept what happens. It's more like, okay, it's more like, oh no, they're just throwing something at us, we have to use it, but nobody asked us. And
Yeah, here
maybe
you go. You got to do this,
they're
right?
looking for
Right.
somebody, they don't even know
You want to
what
know
we are
something
looking for.
funny? So the biggest complaint, I'm laughing. It's sad but true but funny. Um, the biggest complaint that I have seen when I'm as a consultant, I
Yeah.
advised companies for many years, and worked strategically within TA to help build international and scale recruiting. And the biggest consultant question that I got as a consultant, or concern that I got as a consultant with companies that were not based in the U.S. Number one was exactly that. They just told us to do it, but they never asked. And to the point that, like, they may even be asking for something that could be potentially illegal or against policy, or something that just simply does not work because it works there. And this is any international company trying to do business in the US. Very frequently, when I talk to the TA leaders that are the person that got hired to go into to bring the business into the US, they're like, they just have this way of doing things that just doesn't fit, and they didn't even ask us, they just told us. So what you just said is so true. It's the same way either way you go, whether it's going from here to there and from there to here.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Gotta
And
ask questions and listen to the people that are locally before you start making these big decisions or trying to enforce policies that don't
yeah,
necessarily align with
or
and I'm not just talking about the law. I'm talking about culture. I'm talking about even the candidate pool, the market. Things like the process, the interviewing process. I've
yeah,
seen been done completely uncomfortable for talent in the U.S. and vice versa.
yeah. But
And
also, in regards of,
yeah,
minor stuff, it could be also sorted out quite easily in regards of, hey, just because in a certain, I don't know, a certain salary range is working in, I don't know, in Italy, doesn't mean that it would work in Germany. You can't say, oh, it's a salary range for Europe. Won't work. Won't
we were
work at
talking
all.
about that the other day. Compensation. Um,
Yeah.
we were talking about compensation, and the question came up: if you, in order to be fair globally, shouldn't you pay the same amount in every country? So, in other words, let's say that the job in in the United States is software engineer level one, and it pays $100,000. Our guest said you should still pay $100,000 in Algeria, and you should still pay $100,000 in India, and you should still pay $100,000 in Germany. And I was like, wait, hold on a minute. I'm not really sure I agree with that. So $100,000 translated into local currency in some countries could be like a very large amount of money, and in other countries,
A
not
slap in
very
the
much at
face.
all.
Yeah.
So I don't think that that's
Nah.
there's got to be a different way. I don't know if you took economy, but in economics in school. When I was studying in Australia, I went there on an international economics program, and that's where I spent most of my academic time learning about international trade and GDPR and not GDPR, sorry, GDP, gross domestic profit, and all that stuff. One of the things that I learned there was an instrument called purchasing power parity, or PPP, which you're familiar with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it potentially could be a way to equate the earning potential or the earning power of compensation, but then you would still have to translate it to local currency, um, because you can't just adjust it for dollars and pay people in dollars. There's tax considerations. There's, all that other
Yeah.
stuff. So how would you solve that? Is
Well,
purchasing power parity perhaps a possible way to look at that?
I would it
Especially this came up
might
because of pay transparency, right? The person
uh,
was like, "Well, we have to post our jobs. It's the right thing to do." And I was like, "Yeah, but if you, I mean, our salary is what I meant. We have to post our salary and our jobs. It's the right thing to do." And I said, "Yeah, I get it, but if you post your salary and you're a California-based company and somebody applies from a very low cost of living state, that amount of money is not the same, economically."
yeah.
Sorry to cut you off, but what were you going to say?
No, it's I mean, it kind of hard to say. I it kind of depends on the perspective. I believe that would be like, to see it like more on a level where you say, okay, I have like countries, I have like the job openings, I want to fill it, because if we fill the job roles,
Hmm.
we are productive there. And this would bring me to a point where I say, okay,
Yeah,
let's
that's a good
hire
point. Very good point.
let's hire globally,
Yep.
but or let's have like a global strategic, but still, or hire remotely, whatever, however you want to call it,
Hmm.
but do it on a local level. And therefore, adjust the, if in my perspective, obviously it's not globally fair, but on a regional level, adjust the salary ranges in a fair way to the local market, because you want to hire people on a local way. So obviously it's completely right to think, if it's transparent and fair, if I compare somebody from, I don't know, from a low cost country with the colleagues from a more expensive country. But on the other way, I want to hire people in the market, and for me, out of a sourcing recruitment perspective, my job is, to create an environment where I can, fill the jobs. That's my job. Obviously, I understand that the overall, like CHRO, etc., has like a different perspective on it. But from a recruitment sourcing part, it's like, hey, I have to work with the local parts, but also, and this brings us to another point which is important as well: adapt your benefits to the local market. Who cares if you have like a Friday half a day off, or kind of situation? It would be
Okay.
great for I don't know, for some country, but in Germany, who cares? We will leave anyways.
Okay.
Or
So the benefit
it's
is not a benefit, is what you're saying
it's
for
not
that
really a benefit. Yeah,
for that
okay, but
country is not a benefit. Okay,
yeah, but it would
gotcha.
be, like amount of vacation days or sick days. We don't have that here anyway, so don't put it. It's this kind of stuff, and
Okay,
this, yeah. Whereas, adjust it to the local market because you want to fill because you want to fill the job open. My perspective, but it's like more. I think it's like a really. I know it's like a really, let's say, result-driven perspective in regards of, fill the job because it's part of the role. And I understand from a strategic global point, there are different perspectives in regards of, is it fair for every country, etc., etc. Yeah, it's more like, let's say, my recruitment slash sourcing perspective.
right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I kind of like the whole basket of goods approach of PPP, because in some
Mhm.
countries actually already adjust their GDP, their
Yeah,
gross domestic product, using PPP calculations. But it's a pretty straightforward way of like getting a gut estimate of what especially if you're not a compensation expert and you don't have,
yeah.
and you just want to try to like figure out what does a dollar get you there, right? So the
Maybe
whole
maybe you
idea is the sorry, go ahead.
yeah maybe you can just use like the Big Mac index.
Big Mac.
He-
Okay.
did you ever heard about the Big Mac
Yeah,
index? I
the
guess.
cost, what is the cost of a Big Mac, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can pretty much, if you aren't really like into salary guys, you could just, okay, let's just make like the quota from that, and you know, um, adapt the salary according to the different kind of Big Mac index levels. But yeah, but I
Yeah,
think
so
one
basically
of
here's the basic uh, calculator for purchasing power parity. You have the exchange rate, so the dollar to the pound, for example,
yeah
um, equal to the division of the cost of the good in one currency over the cost of the good in the other currency. So you could use a Big Mac, or you could use a pound of butter, or something that is very common that is used
Yeah.
in different countries. So if it costs um, $1 to get a pound of butter in country one, how much does it cost in country two? And multiply that by the exchange rate, and so that gives you a decimal number that will allow you to convert the earnings. So if $100,000 here means, whatever that's 120,000 or 50,000 in the local currency,
Yeah.
so you can get an idea. But if you use purchasing power parity and go back to the conversation we were having about just using the same amount, 100,000 US dollars for a software engineer in California is barely entry level, right?
Yeah.
Because of cost of living, and $100,000 in um, Nassau, Bahamas is going to be, or Negril, Jamaica, or something, is going to be quite a lot, many more hamburgers, many more Big
Yeah.
Macs.
Yeah, or just compare California to the German market. Giving like an entry level developer 100K is like, okay, guys,
Yeah.
nice. What's the catch? Way too high. Yeah, but yeah, and in what's the other way around? If we adjust all these pay grades to that to that formula, and then you're looking for in a certain region for like a really niche job, what will you do? Do you adjust like just the salary range for like one road for the whole country? I mean, and then you have to be fair on a local level.
Capital city versus regional. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
Right.
but also with developers versus, I don't know, some road marketing, for example. At least from over here, what
Right.
will you do? What would you?
Okay, last question, because I know we're running out of time. Last question about this, and then we can close out. What is
Yeah.
the single most difficult role you have ever worked on, and why was it difficult?
Oh yeah. That really down the road. It was like an SAP freelance consultant with like a really niche module. I think it was like ISU or some energy in the industry stuff. In like he has to work remote, no non-remote, in somewhere in the middle of nowhere in Poland, and he has to be there in like
Local. Okay, yeah, not
yeah,
remote.
and he,
Okay.
and really like and I mean there were some energy stations there, and they needed somebody to do that. And yeah, and he has to travel. He has to do certain travel to Russia, and therefore he has to be fluent with both languages, Russian and Poland. And we were recruiting him for as an agent, working with an agency from Germany.
Multi-fluency, live locally, relocate. Okay.
Yes, and
NSAP. Okay.
SAP and the ISU, like a really niche industry module for SAP. um, and which what makes it kind of difficult. The Polish culture tends to be like really, let's say, security driven. Like really, I want to
Yeah.
understand why is that, and they're kind of skeptical. And then there's like this agency from Germany calling, "Hey, we need you right now. You have to start in 14 days, and your please go now." It's like, okay, whoa. Like, it was like a lot of learning for me in the beginning in regards of working with different kind of culture. It was like a mess. It was a
Wow.
mess.
Thanks for
Yeah,
sharing that.
it.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
that's like fun of the recruitment part. It's still it brings you so many stories, different kind of input, and it's yeah, you have like a lot of stuff to do, like bar talks for like over hours and hours and hours, just like it's so small, funny stories, I guess.
All right. Thanks, man. All right. So I always close with one question, but I've been adding a second question in closing. So as we close, thank you so much for taking the time to come out here in what's probably an afternoon, evening for you on a Friday,
More evening.
more evening for you on a Friday. So first one, who should be my next guest?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, I think somebody from I don't have a name but maybe some, let's say, tech recruitment startup thing who are really like a great idea on what to do with ChatGPT. Really would be really interesting to see.
Okay, but I need a
Like,
name.
I have no idea.
No. Okay, so
Don't
somebody
ask
that
me for a
knows.
name.
Somebody that knows ChatGPT and is in technology. Okay, all right,
Yeah.
cool. I'll look for that. And then the final question, which is a traditional question here at Shally's Alley, what do you want to leave our audience with to think deeply about over the weekend? So something, it's a question, a comment, a statement that you want them to really kind of process deeply and think about. That's your last assignment for today.
Yeah. Kind of easy to say, or that's I think I kind of mentioned a couple of times. Um, with all the new technology we have, like a lot of remote possibilities, we don't have, we can do like a lot of work borderless, but still, please stay connected, work on a region level, and still work borderless. I think this would be like for the
Work
sourcing
borderless.
into for more
Work
like
borderless. Yeah,
yeah, work borderless, and
I like
still,
that.
but still be
Think
connected.
borderless, but
Think
locally.
borderless, and
Locally,
still
but borderless. Okay.
yes, and
Okay.
I think this would like bring so much more power to our industry.
Awesome, man. Thanks a lot. So, as they say in German, tschüss. Is that
Yeah, tschüss.
auf
Oh, yeah,
Wiedersehen?
you
Auf
auf Wiedersehen.
Wiedersehen?
Oh, Shally, you learned so much, man. The next podcast we will do it in German, okay? Like half a year. I give you like half a year,
Jawohl.
and perfect. And it's time for beer. We are good
Zwei
here.
Bier bitte.
Oh, Shally, perfect. Okay, now it's I heard everything what I need today.
All
Perfect.
right, man. My friend, good to see you. Have a good weekend. And everybody, thank you for joining. See you next Friday. Be kind. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.